Hello. Hey folks, in a lot of my videos I use the major pentatonic scale as a basis for analysis, improvisation, and theory talks from a bluegrass perspective, and there's a good reason for that. It's because the major pentatonic scale is bland. If you take SKYPE lessons with me, you've probably heard me talk about how it sounds like an unseasoned dish tastes. Which is good. That means that if we want to add other things to it, like say the minor third or the dominant seventh for like a basic bluegrass palette, we can, and we don't run the risk of over-seasoning. Now, over-seasoning is actually a big problem, and that's not because bluegrass breaks can't have a lot of distinct sounds and ideas in them, but it's because every note has a specific context in which it performs best. Now, some soloists don't care. They say, I got 30 herbs and spices, and I'm just gonna dump these on my break, and they're gonna go wherever they go, and whatever, I'm gonna fit them all in. And those breaks tend to sound like someone emptied out a spice rack onto a tub of ice cream. And maybe that's why starting to improvise with the major pentatonic scale is really so helpful. It's bland. You can't make a mistake. It's musical ramen noodles. But despite that explanation being satisfying to some of you, I'm sure there's some guys and gals out there that are saying things like, but what about the major scale? My guitar teacher taught me to play it and I've been improvising with it forever. What about tunes like Blackberry Blossom? They're made of the major scale. Well, let's talk about it because there might be a couple things going on. Maybe you have great instincts with the major scale, or maybe you're not having a lot of success with it. Either way, just a little bit of analysis can go a really long way to understanding how those bluegrass tunes are constructed and helping you to improvise later with the major scale. The G major scale is built of 7 notes. Let's name them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The notes that make up the bland and safe major pentatonic scale are 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. Our remaining 2 notes, 4 and 7, are kind of like salt and pepper. They work over a lot of things, but not everything. Some of the things that might determine whether a specific note from the G major scale might work in a specific situation are the current chord and its position in a measure. So let's first talk about relating our note choice to chords. The 3 most common chords we see in G major are G, C, and D. Or 1, 4, and 5 when referring to the scale degrees that they're built off of. Sadly, every note in the G major scale will not feel consonant over each one of these chords. Let's look at our G chord, or the 1 chord, first. Obviously, the notes that build this chord will sound consonant. So 1, 3, and 5 are solid choices to make because combining them creates the G major chord. Looking at the remaining 4 notes, we can see if we have any notes that might undercut the stability of the G chord. For instance, the 4th degree is only a half step away from the 3rd. This could create instability by undercutting a note in the G chord. The same goes for the 7th, only being a half step from the root note or 1st degree of the scale. The remaining 2nd and 6th degree pose no threat to our chord tones. Both of them are a whole step away from notes in the G chord. Now let's look at the C chord. 4, 6, and 1 build this chord. So these notes are okay. However, once again, the 7th undercuts stability along with the 3rd this time. The remaining 5th and 2nd pose no threat, so they're in. Lastly, we have the D chord. 5, 7, and 2 make up this chord. This time, the 1st undercuts stability, but the remaining 3 notes pose little threat. But, for the sake of symmetry and simplification, let's remove the 4th degree anyway. This approach has left us with the major pentatonic scale for G, C, and D, respectively. That's not where this ends though. Remember, a note's position in a given measure can also affect how stable it feels. Specifically, if a note is on the beat or off the beat, or if you're thinking about alternate picking, if a note is being played with a downstroke or an upstroke. All of the consonant feeling notes we've just identified will feel more at home on the beat or as downstrokes over their respective chords. Whereas all of the notes that we've set aside for each chord, saying that they undercut stability, will feel more at home as an upstroke or off the beat over their given chords. Let's look at a specific tune and see if this all holds up. For instance, Turkey in the Straw. Looking at the first three measures of Turkey in the Straw, we can see that every note on the beat is not only a note from the G major pentatonic, but a note from the G major chord. Our notes that undercut stability ended up off the beat or on upstrokes, notably the 7th and 4th in the first measure. In the second measure, some folks feel a C chord, which works out just fine with our methodology as well, the unstable note over the C chord being the B that ends up on the offbeat. In the fourth measure over the D chord, once again, all of the downbeats are notes from the D major pentatonic. In fact, all of the notes in this measure are from the D major pentatonic. Looking at the next three measures of G chord, we will see the same exact thing as before. Whether or not you feel that C chord, doesn't matter. All of these notes work out just fine. Finally, in the last measure of the A part, we get D major pentatonic notes over the D chord, except for one note that would have undercut the stability, but it's on the offbeat, just where we expect it. In the B part, we see a lot of the same effect, right? The first four bars are all chord tones of the appropriate chords, G and C. However, in the last four bars of the B part, we have a special moment. The question is there a D chord here or not? It feels right. To me, it feels right. But then this G note shouldn't be on beat 4. Now, a lot of arrangements actually remove this D chord entirely. It's just not there. I believe it is there. And it's sort of a testament to say no rule is perfect or absolute, right? This G note shouldn't be on beat 4, but it feels good. It feels right. The melody feels correct, and that D chord feels like it belongs there. I wouldn't worry about it too much. Now, this has been a really long-winded explanation of why improvising with a major scale might be a little more complicated than you expect, but it still points at all of the things I normally preach in these bluegrass lessons. It really does matter that you know where you are at any given moment and you know what chord you're playing over. And Turkey in the Straw is a great example of a deceptively simple melody that isn't just noodling with the major scale. And when you're improvising over a tune like Turkey in the Straw, you shouldn't just be noodling with the major scale. That never works. But anyway, if you like taking a lesson from the biggest, baddest Billy Goat in the barnyard, there's a bunch of things you can do. You know, like, comment, subscribe. You're on YouTube. You know what you're doing. You can also check out my website, lessonswithmarcel.com. There we got a bunch of merch. You can sign up for Skype lessons. We write articles. We got a bunch of tabs and arrangements. A lot of them are for free. Some of them are for sale. And, well, that's about it. I'll see you here next week for another bluegrass guitar lesson.